Welcome to Fearless Conversations, a podcast by free thinkers of the world. The content within this episode is intended for mature audiences only. Okay. Hi, I'm Euge. Welcome to Fearless Conversations.
I'm Mariano.
And I'm Michael.
Today we're talking with Michael Bejani. He's a sociologist and certified life coach. In his own words, in 2017, he hit rock bottom. He realized he hurt himself and everyone around him and decided to get help. This led him on a healing journey in which he learned how toxic masculinity was making him suffer. Welcome, Michael.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining. Okay, Michael has created Fight Toxic Masculinity. This is an Instagram community in which he shares his story and helps others. Congratulations on your journey and the work you're doing to fight toxic masculinity. Could you explain, everyone, what is toxic masculinity?
Toxic masculinity is a set of rules, norms, behaviors, traits that are normalized for men, that are taught to men and to other people and to women as well, that are harmful to men and to everyone else. So things like being told to man up whenever like you want to talk about your problems. They're like, hey, just man up, or like using the word girl as an insult, like, hey, don't be a girl, or saying, oh, like, hey, just grow some balls, or telling people that the color pink is only for girls, or like everyone knows the examples I'm talking about.
Don't be a pussy.
Yeah, that's a big one as well. Yeah, things like that are toxic masculinity. What toxic masculinity is not, it is not saying that masculinity is toxic. It's not saying if you're a man, you're toxic, you suck at like everything you do is terrible. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that there's a very small amount of behaviors that hurt men and hurt other people, that are taught to men. That's why it's called toxic masculinity. So it's like, if we think about it like a cheeseburger, toxic masculinity is the cheese. It's not the whole burger. It's like the whole burger is good to eat. You just have to take away like the moldy cheese and then you're fine. That's what toxic masculinity is and what it is not, in a simple way.
And when did you realize you were affected by toxic masculinity or behaving this way towards others? Because I've been reading your blog. This is, I'm not making assumptions so everyone can know. Michael expresses how he started on this journey, and it was the beginning point was something that happened to him. So would you like to share about that?
Yeah. I was in a relationship with someone and it had ended. And then one day I kind of started to realize my actions and my behaviors and the stuff I was doing in the relationship. And I was like, oh no, I was abusive. I was not physically, but still, like, it doesn't have to be physical for it to be bad. And yeah, so I was playing video games and I pressed pause and I sat down on the floor and I started to think about everything, and everything hit me. And I just started crying and I was like, oh no, I'm an abusive person. I'm a toxic man. I'm abusive, I was just, I just lied to myself for like a few years about who I was. And I think that was the time where like all the like mask came down, all the lies came down, all the truth started coming. And yeah, I held my dog in my arms and I just cried. And then the next day was a Thursday, and Thursday I had like a group therapy session every Thursday. And before the therapy session, you get to meet the therapist one-on-one. So yeah, I went into the therapy session. She's like, hi, Michael, what do you want to talk about today? And she's like, you look different. What's wrong? And I was like, I think I'm an abusive person and like, I don't want to be. And she's like a small lady. And she's like, okay, no problem. Sit down. And then we got to work. And that was like 2017. Yeah. And now I run this page.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah. You have transformed something difficult into something positive to help others.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. Yeah.
And what do you mean when you mention I imagine you meant this moment you hit rock bottom. You meant this.
Like, what did I mean by that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at home, and my ex-girlfriend at the time, she had a blog. And for some reason, I don't know why, like, because I hadn't checked it in like months and months and months. I hadn't thought about it or anything. I cannot describe it apart from it was just like a gut feeling. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like higher power or if it was, I don't know. I really don't know. Destiny, fate, whatever. But yeah, it was very calm. It wasn't like anxious. It was like, you need to pause the game and you need to look at her blog right now. So I paused it. I got my phone. It was like next to me. I took out my phone, and then her blog was like, oh my God, I think I realized Michael was abusive. Like, all the things I'm telling my therapist is telling me like, wow, yeah, that's abuse, and like that's manipulation, and like that's gaslighting. And then she was like posting stuff that's like, oh, I wish I had a partner who treated me like this, but instead, I had a partner who did this and this and this. And it was just like, it was the most heartbreaking thing ever, but I needed to see it. And then, yeah, that's when I started crying, and then I went to therapy.
Wow. It's great how open you are about this, because I imagine many people can identify with this situation. I think we all had, well, this is my opinion here. We are all raised in this society, and there is a moment in which we all realize something we did related to toxic masculinity. And this takes me to another question. Do you think toxic masculinity is inherent to men, to cis men, or how do you see it?
Like, that's a good question. Honestly, yes. There's a quote from a teenager, like a teenage boy, that says, I can't remember who said it, or else I would say the name. I can't remember his name, but he said, I think every single man in the world is on the path to becoming like either a white supremacist or like a misogynist or something like that, until something takes them out of that path. And at first I was like, that's stupid. And then now I'm like, no, I think he's right. I don't think, yeah, it's passed down from generation to generation. It's something we call in sociology, like, well, not sociology, but what I call like is just a hidden gene. So it's something that you do, but like you don't even know why you do it. Because that's like how you start fighting toxic masculinity, is you ask people like, why is pink girly? And then eventually they just say, I don't know, because it is. And you're like, yeah, but why? Like, there's no biological reason or no like scientific or psychological reason. And then that's when you understand that like it's just, yeah, it's inherent. It shouldn't be, but it is inherent for a long time in a lot of societies. Not all societies, but especially for like cis Western men, I would say definitely. And like actually all over the world, like in like Latin America, I know it's a big thing. In like the Middle East, where like my parents grew up, it's the same thing as well. So maybe all over.
Yeah,
It's the same in Asia. It's the same in Russia.
Yeah.
It's the same all over the world.
Yeah.
And I understand you've traveled quite a bit.
Yeah, Auge told you.
yeah.
Yeah, I grew up. So I was born in Indonesia and I grew up in Malaysia. My mom is Iraqi. My dad is Lebanese. I went to a British international school, and then I went to Canada for university, and now I live in France. So yeah, I moved around quite a bit.
And you've met people from different nationalities, from different cultures.
Yeah, I went to an international British school. So like there was kids from like Nigeria, Argentina, like Panama, Paraguay, Russia, Scotland, South Africa, whatever.
And the Scandinavian countries.
Yeah, a few from Norway, Denmark.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there are some countries where the education is more equality based, and that there's less toxic masculinity in some countries versus other countries, and how does religion, if religion has some of that
if it plays a role,
the social part of it.
Well, at the time, obviously, as a teenager, I didn't know, but yeah, now I can tell you that there are countries where toxic masculinity is much less prevalent. It is still prevalent, but much less. So societies where things like gender equality are a big deal. So like the Scandinavian countries, toxic masculinity tends to be less apparent because just with like feminist teachings, with like encouraging equality, with like for example, I think it is Denmark or Norway or Finland. I have Finnish friends, so I hope they don't get upset that I don't know which country exactly it is. But yeah, like the men have as much parental leave as the women do when a woman is pregnant, because it's supposed to encourage like a cohesive family and like healthy upbringing of children. So things like that really normalize like men and women being equal, and like things like softness, empathy, communication kind of being more normalized. And as a society as a whole, now the trend is slowly moving towards like normalizing humans and not like gender roles. But definitely now, like now, right now, 2022, August, yeah, the Scandinavian countries are doing quite well. And there's also like micro cultures in Africa, like small tribes and stuff where like there's no toxic masculinity. Like men are encouraged to cry, and like things like punitive justice, you know, like when like going to jail or something doesn't exist. Like if someone makes a mistake, there's tribes in Africa where like everyone sits down and like they compliment the person who did a mistake, so like they don't feel like all they are is a mistake, you know, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it definitely exists, 100%. It's very beautiful, very hopeful.
Yeah.
And religion, your question was religion as well. Religion definitely 1 billion% plays a role in toxic masculinity, and it's called a total agent of socialization. Basically, it means like things like religion, schools, things like that are kind of something that try and control every aspect of your life. So school, for example, like it teaches you time management, not just homework, right? It teaches you like to manage your time. It teaches you how to travel. It teaches you like how to obey authority, all this kind of stuff. So it's the same thing with religion. And religion, for some people, it becomes like a highway of toxic masculinity, because like there's a lot of dichotomies, like, oh, like men are powerful and men should be respected and women should be humble, and men should be warriors and men should fight, and like, you know, all this kind of teachings which exacerbates toxic masculinity like
Your
10 times.
blog and what you do is that it's not just about the relationship with women, it's about ourselves, you know, and how we relate also with family members, with other men, and we have to act tough. You in one of your Instagrams, you talk about drinking tea in a place.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Somebody says, "Oh, you're waiting to wait to cool down. That's kind of gay." And I go, "Wow, there's still people like that." But then,
do you feel like it's possible to reach a point in which you can relax and say, "Okay, I've healed. I'm not toxic anymore," or is it an ongoing forever process? How do you feel about it?
So my second day, I think, my second ever day in therapy, my therapist, because like I was talking about like healing, and it was like right at the start of my journey. So I was so like overwhelmed by everything. And my therapist told me there's 3 steps to healing from like what's going on in your life. You need to let the pain come, because like I was someone who was extremely good and like numbing. Like I knew what drugs to take, what fast food to order, what porn to watch, what like terrible coping skills to use to not feel anything. So the first thing he was like, yeah, like you need to let she was like, yeah, you need to let the pain come. The next thing is we need to let the pain teach you. And the third part is you need to let the pain go, and then you need to live your life. My sincere opinion is like, yeah, I think you have to move on at some point. There has to come a point in your healing journey where you don't like play that tape about that's all who you were kind of thing. It becomes like counterproductive. It becomes like hurtful. And you need to go from that to being like, that's what I did, that's who I was, blah, 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 but that's not who I am now. And who I am now is like someone different or whatever, like someone healthier or someone better, or however you want to phrase it. And then you move on from your life. So yeah, I definitely think healing is a process. It's a lifelong process. It's not like a destination. Like it's so cheesy, but they say it's the journey, not a destination, which is true. But in terms of like identifying a certain way, like, oh, I was a toxic man, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think it's always important to like learn when to be like, okay, that's who I was. It's not who I am anymore, and then move on. Yeah. Well, me personally, 100%, I told my therapist this, like when she asked me why I was doing it or whatever, I said, like, I think I'm so full of pain and like self-hatred or like like not taking care of myself that it has to go outwards. There's nowhere else left for it anymore. It has to go away from me. It has to go towards someone else. So yeah, I think now a lot of it is, yeah, politics. A lot of politics honestly comes down, my personal opinion, I'm not saying this is the truth, I'm saying like my opinion is politics, a lot of it comes down to pain. When you talk about like white supremacists, for example, who are a huge problem in society, the reason a lot of white supremacists are white supremacists is because, you know, they lost their job and maybe they're disabled. Some of them like have disabilities, some of them have mental disorders, some of them are depressed, some of them are anxious and they don't know how to deal with it. And then an organization comes along that's like, look, we'll give you a sense of belonging and care and empathy. And in order to do that, all you have to do is hate a certain person. And they're like, hell yeah, no problem. I'll sign up for that. Honestly, if when I was a very toxic person, if like one of those kind of people tried to indoctrinate me, maybe I would have gone for it. You know, like pain is a very big, it will make you do a lot of things that you would never do ever in your like regular life. Yeah, so I think a lot of politics
pain
comes from
and fear, right? Fear of the other who's different, who looks different or talks differently, or is not from the same background, community.
Yeah.
So pain and fear. That's so interesting that you can see it on an individual level, but it adds up to a whole social level, like a whole group of thousands, if not millions of people that are just feeling pain and fearing other people who just look a little bit different or act a little bit different.
Yeah, it's easy. Like that's the easy thing. Like as I say, like it's very easy.
Yeah.
For
the
especially
I've had is how to talk to other men. Not
like in general or about a certain.
No, in a way to like it's easier to talk to women about feelings and you know women kind of take out the kinder part, the emotional part, but with men, we you know they're not used to it.
Yeah.
And I also write scripts and stuff and much into that, but just I would ask you to connect at that deeper level, emotional level, without maybe making the other guy uncomfortable. Like how do you do that? How do you approach other guys and
what? Okay. Okay, I'm trying to find like a nice way to
especially
like
heterosexual guys, because gay guys I think are I don't want to generalize, but they will not see it as a threat or something or
yeah,
right?
like that's the stereotype, I guess, that like gay men are like really good listeners or whatever. It's the way I see it is everything you do in life is contagious. If someone you grew up with is full of hate and racist and sexist, it will spread to the people around them. And the contrary also, if someone is soft and empathetic and warm and caring and educated and cares about connection, it will spread also. That's what I found like without knowing, because I started when I was in therapy, I got to a point where I couldn't live life any other way apart from being vulnerable. Like it was going to kill me to live any other way. I had to be like open and vulnerable. So I started doing that. And then what I found was the men in my life, when I started speaking about like my feelings or like how I cried in therapy or whatever, some of them were like, ew, that's so gay, and like that's so stupid, and like let's just go get drunk. And then now we're not friends anymore. But then the friends I still have, when I started acting like this, they were like, dude, this is awesome, I want to go to therapy, and holy crap, like mental health is awesome. And like how, like one of my friends was dating someone at the time. He's like, dude, I'm gonna call her, I want her to come over and we're gonna talk about our feelings all night, I have so much I want to say, you know. So like everything spreads. That's my genuine belief. Well, no matter what, like good or bad, it will spread in society. So
wow, I love that. Yeah, I can totally see that. You know, it is contagious. It does spread. And somebody has to start being vulnerable, because a lot of
Yeah,
men probably are feeling that pain, but they don't know how to deal with it or how to really express their feelings. And when they see you have the courage, it takes a lot of courage, and they see you start it, then you have the guys that get it and they want to
yeah.
emulate that. They also want to be able to be kinder and more open about that.
What
So
I found is like just when I talk like this, I've had so many people be like, "Oh, thank God!" Like, okay, that like they talk more, and like my friends or people I've met like on Instagram or even in podcasts, whatever. Um, and I don't know how else to explain it apart from it's a fundamental human thing to like Brene Brown says, like it's a fundamental thing to like for humans to connect vulnerably with each other. It's like a basic foundational human need, so that the more we do that, the better all of us are going to feel, obviously.
wow.
And Michael, how do you're also a coach, and how do you help others through coaching to work and fight toxic masculinity? Is that correct?
Yeah, I do coaching and consulting, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And how do you approach this topic, or how would you approach this topic, or how would you help someone that maybe doesn't think such a thing as toxic masculinity exists? What do you think? Because I was reading your blog and you found a phrase and that stuck with you, and then it clicked eventually. But sometimes people are like in a bubble surrounded by toxic masculinity. It's all they know. They don't even think it's a problem. um, how would you think would be a good way to help people see this as a problem and realize it's real?
You don't. The fundamental aspect of mental health as a life coach, or if you're like a psychologist, therapist, or even if you're like just someone who cares about someone else and wants to help, the fundamental principle is that you cannot do someone's healing for them. You can only help them to the extent they want to be helped. So I deal with this a lot because I get messages, I get DMs, I get comments on my page, and I'm like, if you listen to me for 5 minutes, I could help. You know what I mean? But they don't want to listen. And for the people who don't want to listen, there is nothing on earth you can do. Like my therapist used to say, you can open the door and show them like the door to healing, but they have to walk through it themselves. Like you can't walk through it and then just do the healing for them. There's nothing you can do. The only things you can do are to give a good example. So you live life vulnerably, openly. You live life taking care of yourself mentally, physically. You try and embody what kind of life you want. So for me, like like it's called the foundational need. So like what I want most in my life is to have a life I don't need to keep recovering from. That's my biggest goal in life, is to build myself a life that's fun. Like I'm wearing a Pokemon t-shirt right now. That's fun and that I don't need to keep healing from. So, so like all I can hope for is that I live life this way, and then hopefully it, for the people who are struggling, they see that recovery is possible, and then maybe then they start getting curious, or they start asking questions, or some of them say to me like, it's not real, but like tell me why, like what are your thoughts? I don't think it's real, but tell me your thoughts. At least then it's a dialogue, at least then they're willing to listen, and then you sit down and you talk, and then some of them want help and they want to go further. Some of them start therapy, some of them don't. But yeah, you cannot help someone who does not want to be helped, ever. For me, it took a long time to figure this out, but for me, it's connecting with my inner child, because I was looking at photos of my inner child like yesterday actually, and in therapy as well, like my therapist would ask me like, bring photos when you were a kid, like into therapy so we can talk about it and stuff. I spent my whole childhood and like a long part of my adulthood just in survival mode. Like I grew up in like a not so nice family situation. I grew up like with toxic masculinity everywhere. I had bad coping skills. So like I lost a lot of the things I really just wanted to do as a kid. So for me, personally, for me, fun is just reconnecting with my inner child. So now I love video games, gummy bears, Lego, I don't know, like cozy stuff. I always loved cozy things as a kid, but I felt like it was like girly or gay. Like whenever we were in the mall and we were walking by like the face mask, like the beauty store. Um, yeah, like my parents were always like, hey, don't be weird. Like, let's go. You're not going into that store. And then now I go to that store, I have like a face mask, I have like a body gel, lavender body wash. Like it's such a good time.
Oh,
So for
yeah.
me, yeah, for me, that's a fun and joyful life because it's a life where you're at peace. And to cultivate that, it was just about listening inward and not outward, because toxic masculinity is outward. Everything you do is based on what other people think. That's it. There is no
Yeah.
part of it where you're like, what do I want? What do I care about? What is good for me? It's all about what other people want. So I did the opposite of that. And yeah, now my life is fun, I guess.
You reminded me of, I went to a nail salon to do a pedicure.
Yeah.
And the wife of a friend of ours went to it was all women, it was one of the few guys, or only one guy. So I was doing a pedicure and she sees me, she tells her husband that I was there. Her husband calls me and says, oh, like making fun of me.
Yeah.
Your pedicure stuff. Of course, I didn't give a shit. I went there again. And,
yeah.
But you have, some men would never go do something like that.
Yeah.
Because it's, they're just embarrassed. They would be embarrassed, or they would worry about people judging them as not being tough guy, masculine.
Yeah, but
So
something very powerful happens when, like, for me, the same thing happened. Like I would start, like I have a huge green like German Shepherd hoodie I wear sometimes when I make reels. It's very cozy. I wear it in the winter. Like maybe 3-4 years ago, I would never in my life show anyone that I had it. I would like keep it hidden. I would like maybe like put it in my closet and like lock the door or something. But when you're okay with who you are, they can't make fun of you for something that you're proud of. So like now people, like it's very fun because now people say to me, like, one guy a long time ago, he said to me, like, I talked about therapy and he said, oh, you're going to go to therapy and then you're going to go home and like play with your Lego. And I was like, yeah, man, you know how fun that is as a day. And his face, I'll never forget. His face was like, oh shit. Like I there's nothing I can do. He had no power. He couldn't do anything.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Because I wasn't ashamed. And I was like, when you give a genuine answer, they're like, okay, I can't say anything anymore.
Yeah, you didn't get defensive, and he didn't feel like, yeah, in a way he's putting you down, making fun of you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of judgment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also judgment on women, and it's nice how even toxic masculinity, there could be toxic femininity.
Yeah,
but
there is.
I don't know if you even go there. I don't know if you even go there or not.
It's, well, for me, like sociologically, toxic masculinity is also taught to women. So there are a lot of women who like mock men for crying, who mock men for like, they're like, oh, you're not rich. Like, you're not rich. I'm not going to date you. I'm not going to touch you. That's gross. Or who like make fun of men for like their penis size or their body, or like if they're balding or whatever, like they'll make fun of men and they think it's okay. Or women who are like, I just want to marry a rich guy. Like, I don't care about him. I don't care about him as a human. I just want to like marry rich and like fly first class all over the world. All of that kind of stuff is also toxic masculinity because it reduces men down into like what they can, like, like how their body looks and this and this. And a lot of people get upset because they're like, no, it's about women, so it should be called toxic femininity. But actually, the word toxic in sociology, whatever follows it, is what it specifies. So if it's toxic masculinity, any norms or anything that is attacking healthy masculinity is what is toxic. So yeah, that's why sociologists are always like, oh, there's no such thing as toxic femininity. But those things are definitely toxic, and a lot of women definitely do it. But it's it's toxic masculinity in women.
Yeah. And this is related to patriarchy, right? Because we're all raised in the same system. acknowledge while growing up, I used the phrase grow a pair or man up or whatever, because you were part of that school little tribe, and if you weren't doing something, then you were against it, and the price you paid for not being part of that was much higher. It was risky. So I'm not saying this is a good reason to behave like that. It's just how little kids can cope with what happens around them, right? So and related to school and growing up, this happens to me sometimes. I'm a feminist that came out of the closet as a feminist because for women is much more, the price we pay for acknowledging ourselves as feminists is much, it's a high price. It's not easy, you know. Sometimes people around you don't like it or disagree with it, or it brings problems into some relationship. So when I see someone from high school, for example, who is now a feminist or who speaks out about not toxic masculinity specifically, but about things, and they are allies, I sometimes look at that, and I wouldn't like to say I resent it, but I do think, maybe it would be nice if you would pick up the phone or type a text and say, listen, I've realized this, and that. Have you ever had the opportunity to connect with someone from your past before all your awareness and reach to them and say, hey, I've come down this journey and I wanted to say sorry? How has that been for you?
Yeah, well, for me, making amends was a big part of my healing journey, and it still is now. It's something like, for me, how to properly say sorry and how to take accountability is like really important for me. And yeah, there were a few people I said sorry to. I said sorry to like my ex-girlfriend. I sent her like a long message and I took like full responsibility, because our whole relationship, I was very good at like manipulating it so nothing was my fault. Like she would see me doing something not okay, and then 5 minutes later she was crying and being like, I'm so sorry, Michael, because I was so good at like gaslighting people. So yeah, I sent her a long message and I was like, look, I'm very sorry, and like it is my fault, it's not your fault, and like you didn't do anything wrong, and like this is why I did it, but it's still not okay, and like, you know, blah blah blah, and like I'll leave you alone, I'll never contact you, because that's also a way to say sorry. Sometimes if you are a toxic person in someone's life, like you should leave them alone, which was difficult for me because I'm someone who's like, no, I want to stay in everyone's life and say sorry, but sometimes the best thing to do is like to leave them alone. And yeah, I've stayed in contact with some of my friends from high school, and I've like apologized for maybe like contributing to toxic masculinity or like bullying them, or like one of my friends, nothing happened, but he was very close to like something bad happening to him sexually, and like we made fun of him, you know, because we're like, oh, like you're so gay and all that kind of stuff. But now, like, it was a few months ago, I called him like, man, I'm so sorry for what happened, are you okay? And like, and he's like, yeah, nothing happened, but yeah, you know, so no one has ever done that to me, but I've done that. I've definitely done that to people, and it's always like such a nice and healing thing for everyone, I think.
You know, that's a huge point about respecting women, that sometimes it could be the other way around, you know, but since I'm a man and you're a man, and I feel like I have to talk about myself. When you mentioned that you apologized to an ex-girlfriend about some of the stuff you did, but then sometimes some men, they apologize and then they expect the women to forgive them, and they want them to keep talking and stuff.
Yeah.
So what you just said is huge. Like, you apologize and then maybe later she'll come to you but it's up to her, and not force yourself. Hey, look, I'm apologizing to you now. You better talk to me, bitch.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. Just because you're apologizing doesn't mean that now this person has to keep talking to you or not. So it takes maturity, it takes empathy to say, look, I'm apologizing, and then if they want to
Yeah.
keep talking, it's up to them. So I just want to reinforce that. That's such an important
It's a
point.
great power to help us spread positive messages. It has another side to the coin. Haters gonna hate. But when it comes to feminism, it sometimes feels like it's a bigger trigger. Like some people like are really reactive to the topic. Things can go wild. How do you manage this? Do you get any backlash or hate from social media? And well, to not only focus on the negative part, then also hear about the positive things you get from social media.
Yeah, I sometimes, not a lot. I've had like sometimes, because like I'm a man and I post about like men's health, sometimes I get like a influx of like men's rights activists. And then when they realize that like actually I'm like posting about feminism, all this kind of stuff, they get angry. And then they start hating, or they leave, or they start sending DMs and stuff. But when I first started talking about everything on my Instagram page, I had like 2,000 followers. I started to get a lot of hate. For me, how I dealt with it was I just deleted the comments and left them alone, because I wasn't a troll. Like that's what I call them. I wasn't a troll, but I was someone who was so angry with my own life that I wanted a fight, like physical fight, or like verbal fight with someone. That's all I wanted. Like it was my release, So like if I had a bad day and I called my girlfriend back then, and like she answered 5 minutes later, I'm like, you know what? You don't take my time serious. And like I would just blow up because I was looking for a fight. So I know it's the same thing with them. No one in their life, I believe this with all my heart, no one in their life has a good day and then goes on Instagram and is like, I can't wait to like insult people online. No one does that. There's not the best day of your life, you're never going to think about doing that. So I feel bad for them. And yeah, I delete their comments. I don't talk. And 100% of the time they have left me alone. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes I have to block some people when they start spreading like sexist, like racist, or like really, really vulgar things on my page. I have to block them. Apart from that, I delete them. Some of them still follow me. I know some of the names. I see them like, oh, this person liked your post, and they don't comment and they don't say anything. So sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe it changed his mind, or maybe like, I don't know. But yeah, I try not to remove them as followers, because I try and be like, you know what, maybe they need to hear this. Maybe it will help. There were times in my life where people said stuff and I acted angrily, but it actually helped me. So yeah, that's how I deal with them. It's unique, the backlash you face, because like I'm a man and I'm a very, very vocal and loud and proud feminist. So I get messages sometimes from men who are like, no, bro, like you're a traitor, and like I believed in you and I loved your page, but like screw you, you beta. And like, oh, like you're just doing this so like, I don't know, like people will like you, or like you're just trying to fit in or whatever. So yeah, I get those kind of messages, but then I also get nice messages. Like you said, I get messages. One guy, I won't say his name because I know he wants to stay anonymous, but one person, he messaged me at first 2 years ago or 1 year ago, and we were talking. And then like one day I got a message. He was like, hey, because of you, like I started therapy. Like you make it so normal, you made it so like normalized. So like I'm going to therapy, I'm starting next week. Thank you so much. And I started crying. I was like, oh man, it's such a good feeling. And then sometimes when I talk, especially about porn, like my own issues I had with like porn, and like transitioning from that to like watching feminist porn and encouraging like healthy sexuality amongst men, all that kind of stuff. Like I get a lot of messages from men who are like, thank God, like please, like I want resources. I'm struggling with this too. Thank you for like normalizing it, and like please send me links. And yeah.
Do you think the way the porn industry naturalizes violence in porn is affecting teenagers in the way they relate?
Yeah. One of the fundamental ways toxic masculinity is spread in society is through porn. And yeah, I could like talk about this for 9 hours, but basically like the fundamental things are porn encourages violence. Mainstream porn, not all porn, but mainstream porn, 1 billion% encourages violence against women. specifically against women. Yeah, it encourages the like not caring about consent. There are thousands and millions of videos that are like that start with the woman being like, hey, no, I'm married, or like, hey, no, I'm your teacher, or hey, no, like you're my stepdad or whatever. And then it ends up with them having sex. So like men learn from a very young age, they're like, oh, consent, who it will always be a yes if I keep trying. There's a lot of shaming in porn. There's like studies that have been done on like men, like scenes that involve men. And a lot of them are like the man says no. And the woman's like, hey, come on, like, you don't think I'm hot? Like, what kind of man are you? Come on, like, you know, like have sex with me or something. So the men also then start to learn that like they have to say yes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can never say no. It's something I struggled with for the longest time. I literally was like, I can't say no. I'm a man. If she wants it, I have to say yes. I've been shamed by women for saying no. I've been like insulted. Yeah, porn causes it reduces women down to like body parts. So you can literally just search like big boobs, Latina, tattoo, and then something will come up. Like you can just create a woman in your mind and then it will appear. There's like, yeah, fetishization of women, of lesbian women. Like it completely ignores that like lesbianism is like like it's like an actual sexual orientation and they have lives and needs and desires, but like it just reduces them down to like two hot girls kissing. Yeah, there's an unbelievable amount that is damaging. It decourages things like connection, care, empathy, aftercare, connection, tenderness, emotions, checking in, talking to each other, not like dirty talk, but like actually talking, like, hey, are you okay? Does this feel nice? Like, what can I do? Men are shamed if they don't like make a woman like come in like 3 seconds, like you see in porn, which is fake most of the time, by the way. They have like special like cables and stuff that like make things squirt and stuff on porn sets. It's not all real, obviously. Yeah, and like the penis thing, you know, like all the men's are like huge penis has sex with like tiny petite blonde or whatever. So yeah, I can keep going, but there is so much damaging about mainstream porn. It is extremely worrying, and it is one of the foundational ways that toxic masculinity gets spread.
Find the right balance between being attracted to women, still having a passion and sensuality and seduction, without making it toxic masculinity where you objectify them. Because I had this conversation since I'm in the acting business, and I love to talk about this stuff, and I still haven't been able to figure it out. Where how do you show the respect and know that no is no, all that stuff, right? There's no question, there's no debate about that. But you still want to, at least I do, and I'm married and I have kids, but I still want to see women as sensual and attractive and stuff. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I personally, I have the same goal. I think there is nothing wrong whatsoever with like healthy sexuality, however you want to express it. Like some people don't want to sleep with anyone. Some people want to sleep with a lot of people. Some people want to sleep with like men and women. Some people don't, it is a super healthy thing to be, to live your sexuality. If you're like a sexual person, if you want to like have more like, bedroom fun than someone else, it's completely fine. It's completely healthy. The difference is between healthy exploration of sexuality, healthy like implementation of sexuality, like you said, like finding the barrier. I think for me personally, it's how it feels for everyone. When it feels like respectful, considerate, like anything that can happen, like the person can say no and it's fine, the person can say yes and it's fine. That you communicate freely and openly about what you want, that it comes from a place of like, I don't know, like, oh, I'm attracted to this person because of like this quality and this quality, and like we have a nice connection, I feel safe and you feel safe. That's healthy. But then when it's like, oh, I've been watching a lot of like Asian porn and I saw an Asian girl on the street and I want to sleep with her, that's the difference. And for me personally, you can feel it like in your stomach when you're like turned on, or like when you're like attracted. like in a safe and calm way, I think you can kind of feel it in the pit of your stomach. And for men, a big reason also why this isn't very normalized is because we're kind of like not encouraged to talk about stuff like this. Me and my friends, thankfully, growing up, we always talked about this. I don't know why, but it was very normal. But no one else in our school ever talked about this kind of stuff. And yeah, like the more you know yourself as well, like now, if someone asks me what I like, no, sorry, like 4 years ago, if someone asked me, like if a woman asked me, what do you like in bed? I would give the porn answer. I would be like, I don't know, BDSM, this, like the crazy stuff. But now you ask me like what I like, I give you the honest answer. I'm like, oh, I like vanilla stuff. I like super calm. I don't want anything crazy. Like I like cuddling, you know, like, and the more you're like sure of yourself, the more you communicate about yourself, the more, what's the word? Like, the more you know what truly in your soul makes you happy about connecting with someone in that way, the less that like that kind of aggressive kind of horniness goes away, and the more that like calm and beautiful, if that's the right word, kind of attraction between two people happens.
Yeah, I have two examples where, okay, I was reading, I sent an article to Euge about 18 things that women do that they're just minding their own business, and men react like if it's about them, right? And one of the examples was, there's this guy is saying, oh, there's this really pretty girl in this store, and you know he sees her as really pretty, cute, and he goes to that store just because he wants to talk to this woman, and he says, but you know, this really pretty woman, and she ends up being a bitch because she hasn't talked to me, she hasn't reacted. The guys think that if a woman is dressing nice or it looks pretty, that it's for him.
Yeah.
And so I was saying, well, this guy, every time he sees a pretty woman or woman that's dressed sexy, he thinks it's to attract him, that she wants to be with him.
Yeah.
I go, no, she just wants to look sexy, and then she's gonna choose whoever she wants to be with. But if it's not you, then just get lost. You know, just don't take it personally. Don't get hurt because she doesn't want you. Just because you want her doesn't mean that she wants you. So that's one example. But then I have my own personal example. When I saw my wife for the first time walking in the streets of Buenos Aires, she was dressed very sexy. So I followed her in the streets, you know, and then I ended up, she works in a store, and I go to the store and I made up buying 2 dresses for my sisters just to talk to her.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but if I didn't have that impulse to follow her, I mean, it's a fine balance between being creepy and being pushy, because I started talking to her, and then, you know, and then if she wanted to be with me, I asked her to go for a coffee and stuff. If she would have said no, then okay, I need to move on, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's like some guys get upset with you or your message saying, oh, you know, we gotta still keep our masculinity or stuff.
Yeah.
And it's finding the right balance. Like, yeah, you can still be attracted, you can still approach a woman, but you know, you're saying you have a gut feeling, or you have it, you have to be able to read the other woman. If she's interested, she'll be smiling, she'll be talking to you, she'll want to keep the conversation going. But if she says like not interested, you gotta, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I like, in all honesty, I was a person a very long time ago, like when I was very toxic, I was a person I think a lot of women would have felt unsafe with me being around, because like I did that. Like I like boxing. I'm a big boxing fan. And like I like doing boxing. I don't like watching boxing. Like it was just a nice workout. And I walked by a boxing gym, and they have like the glass windows. And there was like the girl in who worked in the front counter. She was really pretty. So I went in, and like, in order just to keep talking to her, I signed up for like 1 year membership just so I can keep talking to her. And I went to the gym like as much as I could just to talk to her, not to work out, just to like, hey, how are you? And I made up stories to try and seem interesting, and I lied and whatever. And yeah, and then like with therapy also comes like the ability for me, like it came with the ability to truly like care for people, if that makes sense. So like afterwards, when I started dating, when I started meeting people, and like I would say like, oh, I want to do this, or like, do you want to go for a coffee or something? They're like, no. I was like, okay, like I don't want to make this person uncomfortable. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want them to like feel weird. So okay, cool. Like it, even though it's not the outcome I wanted, I'm like, all right, fine, no problem. And then you just leave because you care for the other person. And you understand like you're not entitled to something just because you want it. And yeah, for me now, like for me now, like the most important thing is like for people to feel safe. My friends, anyone I'm dating or hanging out with, or like even you guys, just talking to you guys on camera, like my most important thing is like everyone always feels like safe and comfortable and accepted. So yeah, that came with therapy and like educating myself. And also a lot of like a big thing men don't understand is just how different the world is for women than it is for men. Like for us, for a lot of men, it's like, oh, I'm just talking to her, I'm asking her out for coffee. If she says no, it's fine. But like for some women, they're like, maybe if I say no to him, he's going to hit me. Or like maybe if I say no, he'll stalk me, or he'll get angry, or maybe he'll throw something. Or maybe like, you know, like there's so much more fear and thinking and planning and like terror that comes from just being a woman existing in the world compared to men, which is also something I didn't know before until I educated myself. Like the day I found out, I was in New York. My ex-girlfriend lived in New York. We were walking back home from a bar. It was like 3 a.m. and I was singing Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston. And she was like, please, Michael, please stop singing. Stop. I'm like, why? You think my singing is bad? You know, I was like teasing her. And she's like, no, because like, I don't want to attract attention. Maybe someone will come and attack us. And that's when I was like, oh, like to her, everything is like, get home safe. And to me, it's like, just have fun and like be goofy. So yeah, like, I hope I didn't go too off track with that answer, but yeah, those two things put together, that's, that's my answer.
It's easier for a man to speak out about these topics than for women, like in terms of backlash and reception from others.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Two things. One is, yes, it's you have privilege as a man for being in society. In like 99.999% of society, it is beneficial for you to be a white, educated, heterosexual man, which I don't know if I count myself like super educated, but I'm pretty much, even though I'm not white, I'm Arabic, but I have white skin, so technically I'm white. But yeah, it is beneficial. And just because of your gender and how you look and how educated you are, people will listen to you more than a woman, which is sad. But you can accept it and you can use that as like you can use what you have to help people, which is what I think you should do with privilege. If it's money or education or knowledge or anything, if you use your privilege for good, it's always a good thing. So yes, that's the first thing. Definitely, it's 6 billion times easier for men to be heard, especially by other men. I don't really know. Maybe in terms of women, I don't know, but like a man speaking, if a woman would hear him more than a woman, I don't know. But for men, yeah, I've been in situations where a woman has said something and I just repeat the same thing, and he's like, yeah, man, yeah, like completely ignoring her, which is something I think every woman has experienced. And yeah, the second thing, which is I think also important to talk about, is how the bar, because of toxic masculinity, the bar for men is so low that things like this are seen as like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Wow, that's so amazing. But actually it should be like a fundamental, like someone saying like, yeah, like women should not be harassed. Now people are like, wow, what an icon. That's so cool. He's so feminist. But actually it's like, people should be like, yeah, duh, like you're not special. Like once in my life it happened where it made me really uncomfortable. I was at a bar. I don't want you guys to think I always go drinking. These are like very specific stories. I like never drink at all.
Okay.
But yeah, because I'm an addict, so I'm clean now and all that. So this was like a long time ago. Anyway, I was at a bar and we were about to leave, and I asked like the waitress, she was being very, very friendly, like especially friendly to me. And I was like, oh, maybe she's flirting. I don't know. So I was like, hey, excuse me, like, I think you're really nice. Like, and I showed her my phone and I was like, hey, do you want to put your number on my phone? Maybe, and I can text you, kind of thing. And she's like, oh, you're so sweet. But no, like, I'm not really feeling it. I was like, okay, no problem. And then like we paid and we're about to leave. And she's like, wait, actually, like, give me your phone. So I gave her my phone. She gave me her number. We went out. And then I couldn't help it. I asked her when we were on the date, I was like, just, can you just tell me why, like, what changed your mind? And she's like, oh, because you took no for an answer. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And she's like, yeah, like, you didn't push, like, you weren't mean, you weren't aggressive about it, you just like let it go. So I was like, yeah, definitely, I have to give you a try. And I was like, that's not a good answer though. It had nothing to do with, she's like, oh, I thought you were handsome, or like, I thought you were nice, or it had nothing to do with me. It was just because the bar was so low for men
Well,
that
it
somehow
kind of had to do with you because you are on this journey and learning all this. So it's not absolutely separated from you. But I understand what you mean by the bar is so low. Yeah.
the mental belief is that feminism is for every human being on earth. That's the beauty of feminism, is that everyone is welcome and that it benefits everyone. I would not be here today, sitting here talking to you guys, without feminism, without the principles of feminism, like empathy, care, consideration, education, fighting for what's right, justice. I would not be sitting here today. Yeah, I say this a lot, like maybe some people think I'm being dramatic, but I really mean it. Feminism is a huge reason why I'm here today. Yeah, it's for everyone. That's why I fell in love with it when I was like 17, reading about it the first time in my first ever sociology class. Because I was like, this is so connecting. So that's the point, right? Like feminism, it's like, if you're Black, you're welcome. If you're gay, if you're straight, if you're rich, if you're poor, if disabled, or if you're not disabled, or if you have a mental disability, if you don't, if you live in Argentina or France, or everyone is welcome in feminism. And the only goal of feminism is to dismantle the patriarchy. And the patriarchy hurts every single person. It hurts men because of toxic masculinity. It hurts women because of toxic masculinity. Capitalism hurts us all because, like, instead of just, we could just be out in the forest, like chilling and playing music. And now, we have to pay rent and there's inflation. Yeah, so I disagree with that. The reason why, like you said, like that kind of old school thinking that like, oh, women don't really like sex, but men really, really like sex, is because men are socialized. A lot of people are socialized into thinking that sex is something men do, and sex is something that something that just happens to them. That's like the old school thinking, which was like, just like be submissive and be like a nice lady and let it happen, and all that kind of stuff, which is horrible and problematic for like 1,000 reasons. Yeah, so that's kind of like why a lot of people, men and women I've talked to, have that kind of idea. And because like when it's very worrying, because there's like men who I've met, and like who a lot of women have met, who are, when women say like, I enjoy sex, or like I enjoy watching porn, they're like, ew, like, what, are you serious? And then like someone said it on Instagram, they're like, so this whole time you've been having sex with women and like you think they don't enjoy it, but you're okay with it? That's really worrying, So yeah, like that's the whole point, right, of feminism, is like, yeah, women enjoy, they're supposed to enjoy, we're all supposed to enjoy it. It feels good, it feels nice, it's connecting, like it's a thing every human being should enjoy if they want it. And
why should we think of how to speak to women?
Yeah.
Are you gonna change anything?
Yeah.
Don't, please. And this is a heterosexual question, because maybe you're gay and maybe you can talk to women the same way you talk to your mom. So for me, it's like rethinking all these cliches and ideas, right?
Yeah, like there's a big normalization for a long time in like media and books and stuff that like for some reason women are like this super complex animal that like we don't understand, and like we have to like really, really think before we talk to women because women are like from Venus and men are from Mars, or whatever the saying is. And it's just not true. Like I don't know how else to explain it. Like every person is a human being. We all want the same thing. If I got canceled when I went into therapy, if I sat down and I told my therapist or I told my friends, like I'm an abusive person, I don't want to be, and they're like, screw you, you piece of shit, like you're abusive, get out of my face, I don't ever want to see you again. Imagine what my life would be like now. I would either be 100 times more abusive, or I would have overdosed, or I would be in like some kind of gang or white supremacist group. And the reason I'm here today is because when I told my therapist, she didn't cancel me. She was like, okay, sit down, let's talk about it, let's figure out why. So I know a lot of people in society have a big problem with that, because they're like, no, some people deserve to like be put down, and what some people do is not okay. And like, yes, that's true for a very small percentage, but for 99% of people who do these kind of things, they're in pain and they don't know how to deal with it. Or like none of these people have a nice childhood. You think gang members have a nice childhood? You think people who, like you said, Mariano, like go and like put pills into girls' drinks, you think like they go home and they're happy and they had a nice childhood and they were hugged lots as children? It's never like that. It's always like, whenever you ask them, how was your childhood, or like, how was your life, they're like, it's never a nice story. So
yeah, there's a component of anger, because I've heard guys say that, oh, women, they only go with guys who have expensive cars, or are really good looking. They're bitches, so they kind of justify drugging them because they say, oh, that's the only way I can have sex with her, and
Yeah.
they blame the victim, right? They blame them
Yeah.
because they only go for guys who have money or a nice car.
Yeah,
right?
they'll find a way to blame. There's like, no matter what women do, if a man, the patriarchy will find a way to blame women. Like
Yeah.
I've heard stories of like women wearing like hijabs, like Islamic women wearing hijabs, and they get assaulted and somehow it's still their fault. And then women wearing like super sexy like tube tops and like bikinis getting assaulted, and it's still their fault. They were drunk, it's their fault. They weren't drunk, somehow it's still their fault. Like they were super friendly, they were not friendly. No matter what happens,
No matter what
the
they do.
patriarchy will always blame women. That's sadly.
I saw
One story that really impacted me. This 13-year-old girl has her period for the first time, and she doesn't really know what's happening. She was in school, and kind of there's some blood coming down, and a boy around that same age gives her like a sweater and helps her cover it.
Yeah,
I go, wow, like
he knows,
that's what
someone taught him.
that's what we need to teach boys.
Yeah,
Like to be more sensitive, to be more empathetic, to understand what women go through and stuff like that, instead of seeing them as different beings. And then it's that lack of connection and understanding that creates this anger and wanting to control the other person and making. So
well, that's the thing, like normalization, that's what it's called in sociology, like to normalize something. Like in our school, one thing I will say our school did very well was normalize like women's bodies. So like we were taught about periods in a very scientific way, so that like when we started to be like 13, 14, 15, and girls started to get their period, no one ever got shamed. No guy was like grossed out. We were like, okay, like you want a tampon? Like, are you cramping? We have like a Tylenol or like Panadol or like, like painkillers in our locker. Like it was so normal. Like it wasn't weird. And like I was surprised to see like in some countries it's like so taboo and like so people are like so grossed out. But the way we were taught, like our science teacher was like, listen, this is normal. This is what happens. This is why it happens. It's completely normal. Every woman in the entire world, or like every woman with a uterus in the entire world, goes through it from the ages of like 13 until, I don't know, 50 or whatever. And we're like, okay. And that's it. So then like when girls will tell us like, oh, I have my period, like my stomach's cramping, can you get me like some water or something? It was never weird. So the more like
secret.
It's not like a weird thing. It's just normal.
Yeah.
Your enlightenment and your self-reflection, it sounds like you've had certain experiences in your childhood, like that neighbor that she didn't attack you and stuff, and and the science teacher who showed you about women, that they stayed inside you, even though you had the
Yeah.
patriarchy and
Yeah.
tough love. And then somehow instead of continue with the tough love and the toxic masculinity, you realize you kind of realize, hey, this is who I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thing, but you needed other people to show
Yeah.
you how to feel more connected with your emotions, your feelings. And then
you
use
can.
those. Do I want to be like this guy, or I want to be more, right?
Yeah, well, you can never, ever do this alone. No one
Yeah.
can ever do this alone. I didn't do this alone. I was helped every step of the way by a lot of people, by like my privilege sometimes, by like the money I was like fortunate enough to have at that time to like pay for therapy, all that kind of stuff. I did not do it alone. And healing alone is like a false, like my therapist and I would like, she would tell me like, because I'm a very like private person, like I keep to myself a lot and stuff. Like I don't, I'm not like a super social butterfly and like go to parties and stuff. I have like a small circle, I'm very introverted. And she was like that's fine, that's okay, but you're not supposed to go through life alone. Like you need people. And yeah, and I have been helped by so many people. That's why I'm here. And I just want to be like one of the people to help someone else on their journey. Like no one ever heals alone. Like that's no way. No one ever stands in front of like a ceremony. Is like, yep, from the moment I was born until now, no person helped me. No person was kind to me. That never happened. So yeah, it's important to have those experiences. And I think that's how healing happens, is like people like that planting seeds in your head. And then you get to choose which seeds you water, and then the seeds you water will plant and flourish.
Love that. That's beautiful.
My teachers, my science teacher, all those yep, there's no way I'd be here without them for sure.
So do you like it when somebody hugs you?
Me, yeah, I have a hug tattoo. I don't know if you can see it, but I love hugs. Hugs are like
I want to see the Pokemon t-shirt.
Oh yeah. It's a squirrel.
Yeah.
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 You have a hug tattoo. Wow, that's I can't believe it. I just felt like I wanted to hug you,
Yeah.
So another thing, my son came out as bisexual when he was 16.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, but not. But I had to process that. I thought he would have all these hot girls, and
yeah.
That's the way I was programmed. I thought of him a certain way. He says, "Fuck you! I'm gonna be my own person."
Yeah.
And I had to adapt. Now he has a boyfriend. But he taught me so much. He was so sensitive, like hypersensitive, and of course he was bullied for his being such a sensitive kid. And it hurt me to see him bullied. It hurt me that I could not connect him as a father-son level, because I had to process my own thing about him not being with cute girls or hot girls. So that's something I want to share also, like how you shared your life and how you evolved, how you grew. So people make you react. Obviously, if it's your kids, they make you react.
Yeah.
A lot stronger.
Michael, is there anything else we didn't ask that you would like to say? Any final message you want to share with our viewers?
I guess the final thing. Yeah, I guess if you take only one thing away from like this podcast, is that toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, all this kind of stuff is learned, but that means it can also be unlearned. And for me, that's like one of the most powerful things ever. And the most important quote I've ever heard in my entire life that changed my life, which I always try and leave people with, is please remember that you cannot hate yourself into a version that you will love. You can only love yourself into a version that you will love. You cannot punish or discipline or insult or belittle yourself into a version that you will love. And that's it. Yeah. Be kind to yourself and all that kind of stuff. That's it.
That's great.
Thank you so much, Michael. That message that instead of trying to change other people, you start with yourself and loving yourself and being kind to yourself, that it almost is that contagious effect that people see that you love yourself, that you have peace in your voice, in your energy, and they start also trying to maybe emulate your, it's contagious. So that's a great message. Thank you so much, Michael. I hope we see you again, and I wish you the best of luck. It's a really powerful message that you're doing. So I wish you the most success.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mariano. That's very kind. Thank you.
So, Michael, it was an absolute pleasure having you discussing these topics. As Mariano said, it would be great to have you again another time so we can discuss more topics, because this is huge and it's contagious. Positivity is contagious. So thank you for your work. If you like Michael's work and you're interested in getting help or getting to know what he does, you can look him up in Fight Toxic Masculinity on Instagram or in his website, the Let's Help Men website. Okay, so we're gonna leave all this on screen so you can find him. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Michael. Bye-bye.
Yeah, welcome. Bye.
We'll
Thank
be in
you,
touch.
Michael.
This is the end of our episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.